Hi everybody, Diana here. Welcome to Sew in Common. This video is February week 1 crossover star part 2. So right back there, the goldish orange and green and red, that is the February block of the month, the crossover star. And yesterday, which was Sunday, I introduced you to the block. We talked about it. And then today in part 2, this is the actual demonstration of how to stitch out the 3 blocks that are specific to this total square. So we have the diamond on point in a square, we have the half square triangle, and we have the modified half square triangle. We're going to stitch out all 3 of those in today's video, and you can also now go to my website www.sewincommon.com to get your download package. Remember the files, instructions, if there are templates needed, all of that for the block of the month at the first week of each month is free to everyone. They will remain free, those sets, throughout 2023. After 2023, they'll go away. And we'll start doing something new. But for now, you can go to the website and pick up your design package, the digital files for the 3 blocks, and the instructions. The full instructions are there. Those digital files are available. You'll get, 1 package, and you'll just go into the folder and find your particular embroidery machine format. Is it PES, EXP, whatever it happens to be? Those are all in the file. You'll just choose the one that you want. And then if you ever have a different machine, or if you have 2 machines now that are different brands, you'll have what you need to stitch them out on any of the popular machine brands. Okay, great. Alrighty, so let me go ahead and share my screen with you, because I want to go straight to my overhead camera and show you some of the things that I have set up. So I've got my little cutting mat here, and my rotary cutter, and my favorite ruler, because we will be doing a little trimming and cutting, so I want those available. I also have my favorite double curved applique scissors that I like to use when trimming away excess fabric. Over by my machine, I have my favorite little snips from, sorry, let me turn those around so you can see them, my little snips from Karen K. Buckley. I have a good pair of tweezers. I have my little glue stick, and I also have my seam roller. All of those are things that will help me throughout this process of stitching these blocks out in the hoop. Let me set those aside for you, and let me show you again what we're going to do today. We're going to do the general half square triangle. We're going to do the modified half square triangle, and we're going to do the diamond in a square, or what you might call an on point square in a square. Whatever you call it name wise doesn't matter. There it is. With each one of these blocks for the main crossover star, you'll need 2 fabrics. I'm doing each sample in different fabrics just because these are what I had in my scrap bin to show them, and that way you'll see the differences as I'm creating them. So these are going to be for the this is going to be for the modified half square triangle. I'm using these 2 for the half square triangle, and I'm using these 2 fabrics, but I have 3 pieces because I'm using 5-inch charm squares here for my diamond in a square, or square in a square. Okay, so those are the fabrics I'm going to use today. The very first block I'm going to start out with at the machine is the half square triangle. So let me change my screen to my other camera. Here we go. And bring that up on full view for you. There you go. Now I have my light turned off because you can see the bed better. When I turn the light on, there's so much glare. And because I'm using my little Baby Lock Flourish too, because the big Stellaire is going off for some work at the fabric shop, that this light isn't adjustable. It's just on or off. So I turned it off, but I feel like you can see it. It actually shows up lighter on screen than it does right here. It's kind of pretty dark for me to see, but you guys can see it good, which is what's important. So I've already loaded a no-show mesh stabilizer. I'm using a 6x6 frame here, or hoop, traditional hoop. This hoop works with Baby Lock and Brother machines. I don't know if other brands have 6x6s or not. If they do, try and find one for yourself, because the 6x6 works perfectly for piecing in the hoop. Now, also, if you have a bigger hoop, say you have an 8x12 or one of those really nice big hoops, you can probably do 2, maybe 3 squares at a time in your hoop. I wouldn't try to do more than that. These are 5-inch finished squares, so I wouldn't try to do more than that. But if you have a bigger hoop, you can. But for this, for today's purposes, I'm going to do it a single hoop so we can see each one. So I've got my design up here on my little screen, and I'm all ready. I'm using my Dove Gray piecing thread that I like. I'm sorry if this camera is just fluttering a little, because of the way this attaches to this desktop. Every time I touch the desktop, it tends to move that camera a little bit. I got a new stand coming, which should take care of that nonsense for us. So, so today I'm using this green and this multicolor fabric to do my my half square triangle. This is going to be what I'm going to consider my print. This, although obviously it is a print, it reads from a distance. It could read as a solid. So I'm going to pretend that this is my solid fabric. And you can do the same thing too. All solids or prints where you have one very obvious print and one maybe that reads more as a solid. Either one of those works. So I've stitched out step number 1, which is my full square and my half square, so I can see where to lay my fabric. Now I'm going to lay my fabric down, and your first fabric is always right side up. We've talked about that before. And I'm going to stitch. Now I have this set at about a 500 stitch per minute, which is kind of a medium to medium low. This is supposed to stitch out in no more at this speed than 3 minutes. So if you have yours, if I were using my Stellaire, I'd have it set up probably around 800, 900. That's going to stitch out even quicker. So these squares stitch out really quickly because they're run stitches, right? So we're not having to worry about any special stitches. Now, this little machine, I will tell you, is a little bit loud because it's an older machine. They weren't quite as quiet as our newer machines are, but I know you know what that's like. But I'm also glad that I'm showing you these on a smaller machine. If you saw the little fun video I put out yesterday on Sunday about getting this little machine out and having to get used to it again, like right here, that's the lever I have to use to thread my machine and all. It's a little more manual than my machines are now, and so it's taken me a little bit to get used to it. Like, I can't send things to this machine through Bluetooth. I have to use a USB stick. I had forgotten all about that. Now, this first half is stitched down. I pull it out because it moves the frame too far back for me to reach. Now I'm going to take my second fabric, right side down, or right sides together, or pretty side down, however you want to say that. There is my stitch line. I know it's a little hard for you to see, but I'm going to lay this fabric down so that it's over the stitch line, but there's a little bit of that fabric from the other half showing, just a tiny bit there. And then I'm going to go ahead and place that back in, and we will stitch out this particular piece. And I just like to kind of lay my hand there a little bit to follow this one, only because, and my fingers are just grazing it, only because at this point you can't use a glue stick quite yet because you don't want your two fabrics sticking together. But now that we're ready to flip this to the next step, I can use my glue stick. So I've got my glue stick here, and like I said before, this is Fons and Porter. It was the only one available at my local fabric store when I purchased it. But I think that was, there we go. But I know Sew Line has one. I actually like that one better. I'm going to have to order myself one. But any fabric glue stick, any Elmer's school glue stick even works, because if it says non-toxic on there, it means it doesn't have chemicals in it that's going to deteriorate your fabric. That's why a fabric glue pen or even an Elmer's glue stick. Now, I can't speak for non-brand or other brand glue sticks, but I know that the Elmer's one is okay. Now, flipping this over and I'm letting the glue just sit there. Now I'm going to take my little steam roller and I'm just going to give myself, I could just do this as a finger press if I wanted, but I like these little seam rollers. They see how nice and flat that is now. And now we're going to stitch this down. We only have this and one more step after it, and we're done with our half square triangle. So see, it really goes by quite quickly. We're almost done there. So see, that lays down really beautifully. Now, when I trim these up and all, I will go ahead and give them a press. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Now we're going to go ahead, and I have one last stitch. And what I like to do is I always, when I digitize my squares for you, I always like to do one final stitch around. Why? Because right here and right here where the points come together, it really locks them together really well. And so I like that. And we're almost done. See how fast this goes? It's really quite quick. And we're almost done with our first half square triangle. Now I know that this 5-inch finish will fit in my 5x7 hoop. If it doesn't fit in yours, you'll need to go up to either a 6x6 or 6x10 or larger. Okay, I'm done with my embroidery. Now with this little one, I have to back all the way out and cancel it and then go in to choose my, okay. Let me take my hoop out and let me flip the camera back to our overhead. There we go. And bring up my full camera. There we go. I need to turn the machine on and off. For some reason, it won't. It's having a hard time reading this USB stick that I've got going. And it could be because it's an old USB stick. I haven't had to use a USB stick on my other machines in quite some time. So these might be really old ones that don't work anymore. Okay, I'm set up for my next one now. Let's go underneath the camera here. So that's that one I showed you. This is the one we have now. I'm going to take it out of my hoop. Now this is upside down to you because I have to take it out of my hoop, but that's okay. Set my hoop aside. Now there is my square. And it looks kind of funky, right? But that's okay. We're going to trim this right up. Now, I'm going to put on my magnifier so I can see better. Right here is my stitch line. I'm going to take the 1/4 inch marking on my ruler and lay it right on my stitch line all the way down. Let me put this up here. All the way down, line that up. Then I'm going to hold. Now, this is an old blade. I hope it goes through. Oh, it did. And it went right through the other mat too. Okay, there we go. So we can set that aside. And all I do is trim up all the way around. I'm not sure if I've showed you how to trim like this in the other videos yet. So this is a good one for you to see. Okay, I've got that all marked. And I love these quality or Quilter Select rulers. I like the frosted yellow on there. It helps me see through. And I love all the markings. And that yellow actually, it makes it non-slip. Do you see how that's not slipping at all? And I'm kind of really pushing on that. Okie dokie. There's my next side. And what I typically do when I'm making my bigger blocks is I know how many of each block I need to make in advance because it will say so in the instructions. And so I just make them, and I don't do any of the trimming like I'm showing you here. I'm just showing you this so you can see it. I wait and I do all of my trimming at the end. I just take it over to my stand-up cutting board and I just go to town and trim them all. So there is our half square triangle. And that's after I've trimmed them over. I also, it's right next to my pressing station and I do my pressing. Now let's talk about pressing for one moment. With the no-show mesh, please go back and watch my video on how to work with stabilizers, because I know some of you think that this type of stabilizer shrinks. It's not shrinking. It's doing something different that I explain. And the reason it is because we're using too hot of an iron. For no-show, keep your iron set between that silk and linen setting, no higher. You don't really need to go lower. You can go lower if you want, but that between that silk and linen setting, and you're not going to have any of that quote unquote um, shrinking that people say happens. So go check out that video as well. So now I'm going to set that one aside. So we're all done with our half square. I'm going to bring in my hoop. And today I'm actually using pre-cut sheets. I like pre-cut sheets of stabilizer for my smaller hoops. You can't really use it in anything bigger than a 6x6 because they're typically cut for 5x7, but they work great for 4x4, 5x7, 6x6. This is not long enough to go into a 6x10 hoop though, but I like them. Now, like I said, I'm doing this because it's quick and easy, but all last month I did several videos, shorts and long videos on using a light weight muslin as a natural fiber stabilizer for piecing in the hoop, and it works beautifully. So check that out. Now I'm going to come over to my machine and place my hoop in there, and let's flip our camera around again. There we go. And now you can see it, and we're going to press, and we're going to stitch out right from the beginning now this time. You'll see the whole kit and caboodle. Sorry that that's that. There we go. So now there is a little tip here that I need to give you when you're doing your diamond in a square. So what we're doing right now is we're stitching out that center diamond or center square on point, and then it takes you to step 2. I want you now to go back on your machine and go back to step 1. In this particular design, I forgot to put a second stitch here. So if you just take it back 1 stitch to step 1, then you'll be fine and you can stitch your fabric on. I apologize for that. I've made myself a note to remember to do that in my digitizing, but I've already got all the pattern packs out there, so I can't change it now. So all you have to do is just go back to step 1 and we're going to restitch it. That's not a problem at all. In fact, that's what a lot of patterns will make you do. I try not to, but my fault. I did that. Now I'm just using a 5x5 charm square here. It's really quite easy to use, and I put it on point and it's stitching out. Now it's going to leave quite a bit of fabric outside of that stitch line, and that's okay. We're going to take that out and trim it. Alrighty, there it is, and now back to step 2. So before we go to step 2 for stitching, let me flip our camera again. There we go. And I'm going to bring this hoop over because we're going to do a little trimming right now. And this is where your double curved embroidery scissors. These are an older pair that I've had forever. They're really my absolute favorites when it comes to trimming in the hoop. They're by Paul. I don't think they were horribly expensive. They're all metal, and I'm a lefty. They work perfect for me. They'll work perfect if you're a righty as well. So, but you can use any of them. You can use your Karen K Buckleys, anything like that. But I like the double point here, or the double curve here. All right, so here's my stitch line. And so I obviously have a lot of excess. Now, what I do in the hoop project, a lot of times it tells us to stitch up or cut and trim as close to that stitch line as possible. Not when we're piecing in the hoop. You want to leave a little fabric there. I kind of like to eye roughly a 1/4 inch and leave that there. And I don't care if my cut is straight across or a little wibbly, that won't matter. But I try to just leave a little bit there and I don't go right up on that cut line because I want a little bit of that fabric in my actual seam, right? Just like we would do if we were piecing these together on our sewing machine, really. Okay, we'll do side 3. This goes pretty quickly. And I'll tell you what it says, how fast this stitches out if you're just doing plain stitching and you're not trimming. When we go back, in fact, it says this whole piece stitches out in just 2 minutes. Now, of course, it's going to take a couple extra little bits of time because you're going to trim and stuff, but that's okay. I'm telling you the time because it really is fast how these stitch out. So I've done my trimming. I'm now going to go back to my other camera. There we go. Stop shaking here. There we go. Alrighty. So now I am going to start with my first corner right up here. In fact, let me just break this back out a little bit. My first corner. Now I'm going to take my 2 squares of fabric. Let's just go back to my camera again. Shouldn't have gone back quite so quickly. Sorry. So I've got my 2 pieces of fabric that are going to be my 4 corners. I've just lined them up on top of one another, and I am just going to cut them on the diagonal, just like that. And now I have my 4 pieces for my 4 corners. So let's go back again to our other camera. There we go. Now, I'm going to take my first piece of fabric, and remember, right side down. Right there is my stitch line. So I'm going to lay this down right sides together with just a wee bit of that other fabric showing. And we're going to stitch that down. And I just let my hand glide right here, my fingers. I don't ever get in close to that needle, heaven's sakes. You know, an interesting story is my mother and my grandmother, when I was a baby, worked in a glove factory making women's leather gloves. And my grandmother, I'm going to put my glue there, flip that over. My grandmother actually sewed her fingers several times. She had some wicked looking scars when I was a little girl from doing that. I think my mom did it once, but she kind of learned. So I'm just going to take this out a little bit and give this a little roll with my seam roller. Put it right back in, and now stitch this fabric down. So on this one, I got this big print at the center, and I'm using, this print is not ultimately small that I'm using here, but it's so much of it blended together. Again, it kind of works as that, oh, sorry about the tail. It kind of works as that idea of a print that will read more solid. Now, I'm not going to worry about trimming any of this right now because I can do all of that at the end. Now, I'm ready to go over to this corner, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to lay my piece of fabric down, just a little bit of the fabric showing from the last fabric piece, and we're going to stitch. See, isn't this quick? And because of this, you're always going to have the perfect seam. You're always going to have it cut right. It's just so easy to do this. And I'm so glad that we can finally do this for folks who want to be able to cook and don't want to do it on the sewing machine or by hand. So let's take this out a little bit. I'm flipping it. I've got my glue stick on there. You don't have to use a glue stick. And to be honest, I don't always, but it will help your fabric to lay nice and flat, and giving it that little roll with your seam roller will really help as well. I'm going to put that back on there, and we're going to stitch that piece of fabric down. There we go. Now we're ready for our next one. And see, we're just doing all four corners exactly the same way. There's nothing different about them at all. You're just working around in a clockwise direction on this particular pattern, but I could have had us do it in a counterclockwise. That doesn't really matter what order. We're just following the pattern. And slide this out. Give myself just a tiny bit of blue. That's actually a little more blue. That's a big splash of blue. I wouldn't normally do that at all. My hand got a little heavy there, to be honest. Do my little seam roll. Roll. There we go. Make up a song about this, right? Stitch, flip, and roll. You don't want to hear me do that, right? But I get it. But don't you guys make up your own little quilty songs when you're doing your quilting sometimes, or your embroidering while you're waiting for stuff to happen? And now we're ready to do our very last corner. And again, just like the other three, right sides together. I always like to have just a little smidge of that other fabric showing. Now, in all honesty, these quarters that I'm using, triangles from the diagonal cuts, are a little bit bigger than I really need, but I had some charm squares left over, so I just used them, and that works fine. Now I know I'm not going to have my fabric isn't going to be cut short or anything like that. So I like using my back quarters out for these kinds of squares, or not my back quarters, my charm squares. Alrighty, and now let's stitch down the last one. And then the very last stitch that we need to do is all the way around. Now, I'm gonna give you. I have raised the foot. Let me lower my foot here. I have raised my foot up on here. Let me see what I have mine set to. I have my embroidery foot height right here at 3.5 millimeters. And that's a little higher than normal. I do that because if I don't, your foot may get trapped, and you'll have to be careful with that. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my seam roller over here and really give this excess fabric a little bit of a roll. I know you can see the camera wiggling because I'm really rolling it to kind of flatten it out. But with that raised, with my foot raised a little bit, I don't typically have problems. But on blocks like this one, where that's going to happen, I always like to just kind of stay with it and guide it. So if I see it's going to catch on this fabric, I stopped my machine right away. There. By rolling that, it just worked beautifully. No problems at all. Whoops, now it didn't work there. So I'm going to cut my fabric or my thread. Now, I'm not all freaked out about this. Let me bring this out a little bit. And just, because this is a run stitch, all I have to do is give it a quick little cut, and it's fine. Now I'm going to go back about 10 stitches. There we go. Now I'm laying this down. I'm going to hold that. My fingers out of the way. There we go. And now we're fine. And now we'll do it. I'm just holding that there. Perfect. So I always advise never walk away from your machine when you're doing your stitching, because that's when those things happen, right? But I'll show you this more. So now we're done with this one. And let's see if it will let me go back. Okay, yes. Well, let me bring it up. Oh, it did it. Good. All right, so I'm going to bring up my next square, which is our modified half square triangle. So let's bring this out. Let's come over to our camera, our other camera. There we go. And whoops. Wait a minute now. Hang on. Oh, what's happening here? It's not letting me. There, I just chose it with my mouse. Something was happening. It wasn't letting me flip through. All right, so here is our piece. So do you see what I mean? How this now, if you trim this in the hoop as you go, that might not be as much of a trouble, but I just don't want to waste that time, to be quite honest. So I just came in here and flattened these out best I could, but it still behooves me to kind of hold those down. Now, I could have even taken a bit of my glue stick, put it on there and glued that down, which would have made it even flatter. But with blocks where you're going to have multiple crosses like that that go around, you're always going to have a direction where you can end up having that happen. Like I said, because that's just a run stitch, stop your machine, back up your needle about 10 stitches, and just clip that thread with your scissors, and then just move on, and it's no problem at all. Okie doke. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and trim this one. I need my magnifiers. There we go. So I've got this all lined up right down my 1/4 inch. I'll just finish that on here. There we go. But it's really important to do that final stitch all the way around, basically because of just what we just showed you. See how these all overlap and come together? That final stitch all the way around, make sure that they're all connected, because when you just stitch your fabric down when you flip, it doesn't cross over into the previous fabric. So that final stitch just gets everything together really nicely. And so I don't skip that stitch in my design because it's important. And one more side and we'll be done with the on point, a square in a square, diamond in a square, whatever you want to call it. My glasses off, or my magnifiers off, and there we go. So now we've done our half square triangle and we've done our diamond in a square. Pretty easy, right? So we have one more to do, and that is our modified half square triangle. Now, sometimes people have you do this block in 2 hoopings. I don't quite understand why, because it really can be done in one. If you're doing a 1/4 square triangle, and that block is coming for us, right? Then in fact, I think the 1/4 square triangle is in March's block for sure. That has to be done in a double hoop or on a bigger hoop where you can do them both together and then you have to put them together. Because remember, we're always flipping and stitching. So if you have a interior corner, you can't necessarily flip and stitch. But we'll talk about more of that when the time comes. All righty, I'm going to go ahead and start doing the initial stitching while I flip my camera over. And hopefully, oh gosh, it's still not working. I'm not sure what's going on here. Well, we'll just click on it like this then. Oh, I know why it's not doing it. I was holding down the wrong button. Oh, it's always something that I've done, right? It's always something that I've done. It's not really technically the technology's fault. It's my fault. All right, so it does the first main triangle or the first top half of it. This is going to be the modified part. This is the part of the modified half square triangle that looks like the quarter square triangle. So for this one, we need two of those triangles. Now, this is going to be my print. You use two pieces of print for this. So you're going to use a bigger piece for the second half, and you're going to use a triangle. And then you're going to have a solid. This is definitely a print that reads as a solid, right? I mean, I wouldn't even think twice about calling that a print. I would just call that a solid with a nice little background. All right, so on this one, I'm going to take it out and hold it up for you. In fact, let's go back to the other camera for a moment. Because I think it will help you to see this underneath this camera where the light's better. Well, except that it's on a dark or gray thread, so you really can't see it. Right. I'm going to follow my lead here, okay? So here, actually, I know what I'll do. Here is, just using a Sharpie, won't hurt anything. Here is my, see, I can't even draw a straight line when I'm following a straight line. Here is that first triangle that it stitches out. Then it comes in the last part of it and it splits it like this, right? So this is the part that looks like the quarter square triangle. This is the modified part of the modified half square triangle. So the very first thing you're going to do is place your fabric for this upper triangle. That's your next part. That's the part that gets stitched down right side up. And this, again, will be one that we trim. So I'm just going to lay this on here so that it's right there. And I'm not even going to bring you back over here yet because this is going to stitch out really quick and then we're going to trim it. So let's just let that stitch quickly and I'll show it to you back under this camera. So hang on with me for just one moment while that stitches out. I think it'll be easier on you than the flipping. There has to be a better way for me to flip these cameras that way, but that's the only way I know to do it now. So I apologize if that's a problem. All right. And I'm going to get ready for this one. All right. And bring this back over and show you. All right. So here is that triangle stitch down. There is my stitching. But see, I've got a lot of extra fabric here again. So we're going to do the trimming. I've got my double curved scissors and I'm just trimming this right down all the way around. The reason I like this double curve is a friend of mine, when I first started embroidery, she told me to get curved embroidery scissors, curved applique scissors. And so I did, but the curve was only a single curve. It just came down and out. And it didn't do what I needed them to do. She said, you need to have that upward second curve. And the reason is because with this flat, it's almost like a duck bill in a way. It allows you, if you're going to actually trim right up next to your stitch line, you're able to guide it really well along that stitch line because of that second little curve there. And I, once I purchased these scissors at my local fabric shop, I've just never looked back. I really love them. I love Karen K. Buckley's, but just like these little guys, these are flat. So it's harder when I'm right up on that line. I'm still on point with this. Whereas this one, I have a little bit of a bevel so I can guide it. Now, Karen K. Buckley does have, let me bring these over, these little tiny ones that are, they're not really a double curve, but they curve up enough. Some people really like these. I find them just too small and the blade a little bit too small, to be quite honest. Um, but I have them, and if this is the only thing I had in the room, I would use them. But what I really like are these ones by Hall. And that's the nice thing, is there are so many embroidery scissors on the market and applique scissors on the market that you get what you like best. And I'll tell you something, I will do a little video on different embroidery scissors, because I will talk specifically about that duckbill scissor. Because those of you that are left-handed and people are telling you, oh, just do this and this and this with the right-handed ones, nuh-uh. You're using them incorrectly. You could get hurt that way, and it could ruin your project that way too. If you're left-handed and you want a duckbill, purchase yourself a left-handed duckbill scissor. They are out there, and they are definitely worth the time. Now I'm trying to find my other fabric. It's falling on the floor and I can't see it. Hang on. It was right here and I moved it. It's gone somewhere. I'll have to back this up for some. Hang on. Stand up. Oh, there it is. I know it probably here somewhere. I like my chair because it will go up and down, so I can lower it and get down to where stuff is at. I hope you can't see me doing that. That's silly. But right now, there is my chair back up. That's the way it is, right? We all have this. Let me bring my table back here. We'll straighten that for you. Okay, so now we're done with this one, and we're going to do this one. So again, we're going to have to trim this, but again, I'm going to lay it right sides together, let a little bit of that bottom fabric show through. Let me attach this to my machine, and let's flip back over. Oh, yeah, that's all right. And we're going to stitch that now. So now we've done the modified part. The next part is just adding the other half of the half square triangle on. This particular pattern at 500 stitches per minute, it says stitches out in 3 minutes. So all of these stitch out somewhere between 2 and 3 minutes. So not much time at all. Oh no, I laid it down incorrectly. All right, so now you get to see me fix a boo-boo. Let's bring our camera over. I wasn't really paying attention. Hang on. Okay, that's not a problem. I'm gonna back up my. This is what I get trying to talk and stitch at the same time. All right, so let's take a look. See what I did here? I laid the triangle this way. Well, when I go like this, it's not going to fit there, right? And that's obviously plenty of fabric. So I'm just coming in here. I am just stitching a little bit. Here's another. These are other things that I like to use. This little curved snip here. The one I really like as well is this curved one with the hook. The curved one with the hook, I know that OESD sells them. I don't know who else might sell them, but I do think there is another company, but the OESD ones are the ones that I use. So then I'm going to take a piece of my embroidery tape. I'm going to lay it on that seam line, and it's just going to pull out any leftover thread from that. That's how I clean that up. See, nice and clean now. And it's all on that little piece of tape because I'm not sitting there and picking that out, right? So this is how you should lay this down. You want to lay it down. So see how this is, right, wait. See how this with the point down, you want to lay this down the same way, again, with a little bit showing. So now when I flip, it's going to cover everything. So you want this right side down with the point going the same direction as the fabric underneath it. So you want to lay this the same way as that fabric. Now we'll place this back on the machine. And again, I'll just let it stitch that line really quickly. And then I'll bring it back over and we'll take a look at it. Alrighty, now we're going to bring this back over. So here we have our fabric down. I'm going to give it a little swipe of my glue stick. I'm going to bring in my seam roller. Now I'm going to flip that. Now that's perfect, right? And now I'm just going to give that a bit of a press with my seam roller. See how nice and flat that is now? Now let's flip back over to our other camera. There we go. And we will stitch this down, and then we'll be ready to finish this one up. So I'm glad I made these little goats while you're going, because I want to show you all, it's a good way to show you all how easy it is to fix these if you get little goofs like that. It's not the end of the world. It's not a big time suck from your total scenario. You just have to take, that was like 30 seconds to fix that, right? Now, so hang on. I'm going to stop this for a second. I'm going to go to the next step, but I want to come in here and just trim away a little bit of this. I'll show you when we go back under, because I've got a little bit too much right there. I don't want all of that underneath my next piece of fabric. Okay, so see, I just trimmed this away so that there wasn't so much there. Okay. There we go. Now I'm going to lay my next piece of fabric down. Now, granted, I have a really big piece of fabric here. You will not need a piece this big. I just cut it and went with it. I'm laying this down again. This is my fabric that is my print. There we go. Now we're going to stitch this down. Easy. Give it a swipe of glue while it's just sitting there. Okay. We're going to flip everything all nice and a little seam roll. Now, I will have enough fabric here left over that I'll have a whole triangle still to use on my next modified half square triangle at the beginning. So nothing of this extra is going to go to waste. I'll show you what I need in a moment. So now we have our final stitch out all the way around. And I really just need to be careful on this corner, but it should be fine. There we go. And that is our modified half square triangle. Isn't that easy? None of these are difficult. Okay. We're going to flip the camera back over because now we're going to finish up everything else under this main. Okay, so here we go. So see, we have all this fabric left over, but if I cut this right this way, that's going to be more than enough for me to do another. In fact, I could probably even cut that in half and have two pieces left to do two more squares in that fabric. I try not to do unnecessary big pieces like this that are going to be wasted. Here we go. Now, very first thing I want to do is trim this side because I'm going to go ahead and trim it all the way off corner to corner. I'm going to line up my quarter square just like I have before, right? So, or my quarter inch right on that line. Slide that up so it goes off. There we go. That's great. I've got my quarter inch. Now I'm going to take my seam or my rotary cutter right here, and I'm going to cut all the way up and off of that. Now I have this piece of fabric, and I'll be able to use that for this piece two more times. Plus, I'm going to get another piece over here I could probably use as well. Let us just trim this and take a look. So when I give you these measurements, don't freak out on them because you're going to be able to get your extra blocks done in them just from this one piece because you'll need to make 4 of the modified half square triangles. And okay. So there is our modified half square triangle. Easy, right? All 3 of them. Modified half square triangle, diamond or square in a square, whatever you want to call it, and our half square triangle. And those will, see how they will all go together. Okay. Now, on this one, we still have this fabric left over. So this one piece right here, if I were to lay it down, is more than enough to do that. So there's your second piece for your modified. Now on this one, all I need to do is take and cut it right from the tip down and use a line on your mat to guide you to make sure you're getting it straight. There we go. Now, sorry, I've got a dull blade in here. It's got a little chink in it. Somebody had something that they want to do. Oh well. Alrighty, so there, that's enough. So that's my 3rd modified. That's my 4th modified. So this particular piece of fabric was, wasn't like that. It was like that. There we go. So let's see how. That's So I think this was a 7x7 square. I'm pretty sure that's what I cut it as, was a 7x7 square. And the nice thing about that 7x7 is that it gave me enough fabric to do all 4 of my triangles. So this will be in the information that you get for the instructions to cut one big square. And after you've done your first modified half square triangle, you will have the rest of your fabric available for your other 3. And then you will have to do your bigger piece. And those you can do, I will give you smaller blocks that you'll cut, and then that will be for that. And then you'll have your one for your solid there. So that's the modified again, that's the diamond, and that is the half square triangle. What do you think? It was not difficult, right? It was pretty easy. Let's go back now and let's remove our shared camera. There we go. So pretty easy. Now I know this video was a little bit longer than normal. That's another good reason for us to split these into 2 parts this week, because I wanted to stitch out all 3 of those for you. And we had a little goops on this little machine. That was good because you guys saw how easy it was to fix those, right? So all the instructions and files are available now over at sewandcommon.com. So go get your packages so that you can get started on your blocks. Again, I'm looking forward to seeing finished projects whenever you get them done. I'm not rushing you, right? I'm not. But whenever you get your game boards done, I love to see those. And just do the @Sew in Common and the hashtag Sew in Common when you post those pictures. And we'll get to see those because I can't wait to see what you guys have done. And really, I have a lot of these little blocks done now from doing samples. You know what? I'm just going to sew them all together in some crazy way, and I'll make a little table topper quilt or something, all kind of patchy and all. And I love stuff like that. Or I'll save these blocks up, and eventually I'll have enough for a big quilt. So sample blocks never go to waste in our house. Okay, folks. So this was the crossover star, February week 1. Crossover star is our block of the month. This was video part 2. Please let us know in the comments if you have any questions, or you can contact me at my email, diana@sewandcommon.com. So when I say when you do your pictures, just do the @ Sew in Common. Don't do the .com, don't do the Diana, just @Sew in Common and the hashtag Sew in Common. And that way I can see your photographs. But you can contact me there or contact me through YouTube here. And let me just let you all know too, we have an Instagram account as well. Guess what it's called? Sew in Common. So go check that out as well. There's if you have Instagram, you might like seeing that because the reels and stuff I do are like our short videos, but they're a little bit different. So go check those out if you want to. And until next week, so life beautiful. I'll have some bonus videos for you as well this week. Uh-oh, looks like my camera just died. Oh, hang on. Hang on, let me, oh, there.